The moment Karen Whitmore called Child Protective Services on a single mother, she thought she had already won. Because in her world, one accusation was enough to destroy a life. And on Maple Ridge Drive, no one had ever fought back after that kind of call. But what Karen didn't realize was that this time, she hadn't just made a complaint. She had started a chain of events that would expose something she had spent years hiding. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Emily Carter was in her kitchen, helping her son Noah finish his homework. Spelling words. Math corrections. Small laughs in between. Normal life. The kind of life she had fought hard to rebuild. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. But official. When Emily opened the door, two people stood there. Serious faces. Clipboards in hand. Child Protective Services. For a second, she didn't even process the words. "Ma'am, we received a report concerning your child." Everything went still. No anger. No panic. Just that sharp, sinking feeling in her chest. Like the ground had quietly shifted beneath her feet. Across the street, behind half-closed blinds, Karen Whitmore was watching. Waiting. Because she had made that call herself. And she knew exactly what it would do. In her mind, this wasn't cruelty. It was strategy. She wanted Emily gone. Not fined. Not warned. Gone. The house Emily lived in. Karen had someone in mind for it. A relative. Quiet. Better suited for the neighborhood. And Emily. A single mother working long hours, no husband, no connections. Was, to Karen, an easy target. Inside the house, the inspection was thorough. Questions. Observations. Notes. Emily answered everything calmly. Yes, she worked full-time. Yes, Noah stayed with a neighbor after school sometimes. Yes, life got busy. But nothing pointed to neglect. Noah was healthy. Polite. Comfortable. The home was clean. Organized. Still, the visit left a mark. Because accusations like that don't just disappear. They linger. After they left, Emily stood by the door for a long moment. Silent. Processing. Then slowly, she turned her head. And looked straight across the street. At Karen's house. Because deep down, she already knew. That evening, the neighborhood felt different. Quieter. Heavier. A few neighbors had seen the CPS vehicle. Some guessed. Some whispered. But no one said anything out loud. They never did. Because Karen had built a reputation. Not just for enforcing rules. But for making problems appear out of nowhere. The next morning, Karen made her move. She didn't wait. Didn't hesitate. She walked straight up to Emily's front door and knocked. Confident. Composed. When the door opened, Karen didn't smile. Didn't pretend. She got straight to the point. "You should start making arrangements." Emily didn't respond. Karen continued, voice low but sharp. "This neighborhood has standards. And situations like yours." A brief glance inside the house. "They don't usually last here." There it was. Not a warning. A message. At that moment, most people would have argued. Defended themselves. Explained. Pleaded. But Emily didn't. Because something about the way Karen said it made one thing very clear. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. Karen stepped closer. "You've already got attention on you," she added quietly. And once that starts, it's hard to stop. A subtle threat. Wrapped in fake concern. Then she turned, and walked away like it was already over. But inside that house, something shifted. Not fear. Not panic. Something else. That night, after Noah had gone to bed, Emily didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. Didn't spiral. Instead, she pulled out a small folder from a locked drawer. One she hadn't touched in years. Inside were documents. Old emails. Records. Proof. Carefully kept. Never used. Because Emily Carter wasn't just a struggling single mother trying to survive. She was someone who had learned the hard way what happens when people abuse power. And more importantly, how to stop them. Across the street, Karen believed she had already set everything in motion. One call. One push. One more step. And that house would be hers to control. But what she didn't know was that the woman she tried to remove was about to turn that entire plan into the biggest mistake of her life. Karen Whitmore believed she had already won. One call to Child Protective Services. One quiet push. And a single mother's life would start falling apart. That's how it always worked. What she didn't know was that this time, every move she made was being quietly recorded. The next few days were exactly what Karen expected. Follow-up visits. Routine questions. A subtle shift in how neighbors looked at Emily. Doubt had been planted. And Karen counted on that. Because in communities like this, reputation spreads faster than truth. But inside Emily's home, something very different was happening. She wasn't defending herself anymore. She was building a case. Every interaction with Karen, documented. Every message, saved. Every timeline, aligned. And more importantly, she had something Karen didn't expect. Witnesses. It turned out Emily wasn't the first. Quiet conversations started surfacing. An elderly couple 2 houses down, who had once received anonymous complaints, right before selling their home under pressure. A young family, who had been reported for noise disturbances that never existed, until they moved out. And then, one name kept coming up. A relative of Karen's. Someone who had been trying to move into the neighborhood for years. Suddenly, the pattern wasn't subtle anymore. It was calculated. Emily didn't confront Karen. Didn't argue. Didn't even react. Instead, she waited. Because she knew something Karen didn't. False reports, especially involving a child, don't just disappear quietly. They get investigated. And then it happened. CPS came back. But this time, it wasn't just a routine follow-up. They had questions. Specific ones. About the original report. About inconsistencies. About details that didn't match reality. Because somewhere along the way, Karen had made a mistake. A small one. The kind people make when they're used to getting away with things. She had added details she couldn't possibly have known. That changed everything. Within days, the focus shifted. The investigation was no longer centered on Emily. It was circling back to the source. Karen felt it. At first, just a slight discomfort. Then confusion. Then something she hadn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. She tried to regain control. Called the HOA board. Pushed for immediate action. Filed a motion to escalate violations into a forced compliance hearing. A legal step that could fast-track pressure on a homeowner. Her goal was simple. Force Emily out. before anything turned around. But this time, Emily was ready. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Small room. HOA panel. A few residents watching quietly. Karen walked in confident. Perfect posture. Controlled expression. This was her territory. Emily walked in, calm. No panic. No hesitation. Just a folder in her hand. When it was Karen's turn to speak, she did what she always did. Presented concerns. Used formal language. Framed everything as community standards. To anyone who didn't know better. It sounded reasonable. Then Emily stood up. And everything changed. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't argue emotionally. Instead, she started laying out facts. Clear. Structured. Precise. A timeline of complaints. Names of previous residents. Patterns of behavior. And then, she placed something on the table. Printed statements. Signed. Neighbors who had stayed silent for years had finally spoken. Karen's expression shifted. Just slightly. But enough. Then came the final piece. Emily looked directly at the panel, and said calmly. The original CPS report included details that could only have come from someone watching my home closely, over time. A pause. Then. And I have evidence showing who that was. The room went completely still. Because in that moment, for the first time, Karen wasn't the one in control. The board reviewed everything. Carefully. Thoroughly. And when the decision came, it wasn't subtle. The motion against Emily, dismissed. Immediately. All violations, cleared. But it didn't stop there. The HOA launched an internal review. And Karen Whitmore, the woman who had controlled that neighborhood for years, was removed from her position. Effective immediately. And the CPS case? Closed. With notes. False reporting, under review. Karen's reputation didn't just crack. It collapsed. In the weeks that followed, things changed on Maple Ridge Drive. Neighbors started talking again. Looking at each other differently. And for the first time in a long time, Karen kept her blinds closed. As for Emily, life didn't magically become perfect. She still worked long hours. Still managed everything on her own. But something had changed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She had taken on someone who tried to break her. And walked away stronger. Because sometimes, the person everyone thinks is an easy target is the one who knows exactly how to bring everything down when pushed too far.